Hi all, Rick here. This video aims to look into the more abstract notions of Klingon honour, what defines it, why it's a thing and how it's interpreted. The reason for the existence of such an honour code seems preservational. The Klingon heart is wild and untamed, and without a structure of conduct around their actions, it would be easier to fall into barbarism. The notions of Klingon honour are traced back to the life of Kalis, who is said to have not only been a great warrior, but one who brought about the birth of modern Klingon society. His life and deeds have since passed into parable and myth, becoming this larger-than-life figure that represents the ideal honourable Klingon, but just what is that? The biggest thing to understand about Klingon honour is that it is not the same thing as what humans consider honourable. While there is some overlap, it is difficult to define just what honourable is, even in our own cultures, as it has changed over time and differs among people to this day. What is more clear is the value that the Klingon Empire places on the concept. The greater honour an individual or house has amassed, the more weight they carry in their dealings with others, and the greater standing they have in life and legend. This has led to numerous cultural clashes, especially between the Federation, who generally sees equity, selflessness, and fair play as being honourable. Because of how combat-centric the Klingons have become over the years, it is unsurprising that their pursuit of honour is often tied to battle and a warrior's conduct. But their society was not always this way, with the Klingons in other occupations noting that they have been on a long-term cultural slide towards more warriors forsaking the rest of their societal needs, as this was seen as the most glorious and honourable pursuit. There was a time when it mattered more what a Klingon held in their hearts and how they conducted themselves than the glories that they had accumulated. The Klingon Empire, as we see it in most times, is aware of this discrepancy on some level, but continues to perpetuate and dilute what exactly honourable conduct is, rather than confront what is in effect a systemic issue. That is not to say that true honour is lacking in the Empire. It is often recognised and celebrated where it is found. It's just that many cloak their actions in honour after the fact to justify them instead. You can accuse the Vulcans of doing much the same thing with logic, and to be fair, this is expected. Klingons are people, fallible, and imperfect. Following Worf's antics in Star Trek may not actually be a completely accurate depiction of Klingon honour either, as Worf, while undoubtedly honourable, has spent most of his life surrounded by humans. On top of this, he often felt like an outsider, and doubled down on his status by thoroughly embroiling himself in Klingon heritage and culture, taking it to a degree of seriousness that eclipsed most Klingons. This built a library of knowledge, proverbs, examples, and history of Klingon acts deemed honourable, but blended with more traditionally human values too. One of the first interactions with the Empire properly sees the reveal that his entire family, the House of Mulg, has been falsely accused to spare House Duras shame. In this, the crafted views of Klingon honour that he has been cultivating is collapsed around him, and he realises the difference in acting honourably and crafting an honourable image. They are not the same thing. Honestly, I think Worf is a great portrayal of an ideal 24th century Klingon, not only embracing the traditions of his people, but interpreting it in a way that allows him to coexist amongst others, as the Empire must, in an age of interplanetary relations. All this is to say that amid Worf's examples, the hypocrisy of the Empire and the warrior-centric view on it, defining honour becomes rather difficult to do. In many ways, it's easier to contrast what is dishonourable to find what matters. There is a line from Starfleet Academy that I really enjoyed. During a discussion with a Klingon leader with whom Captain Ake has history, she asks, "Why must everything be a fight with you?" And he replies, "I am Klingon, the fight is where I live." That's a good line that encapsulates a notion of Klingon honour. The harder won a victory, the more honourable it is, the more enjoyable it should be. And this challenge applies to more things than literal combat. There is honour to be found in any trial and challenge to overcome, no matter the profession. One thing that seems clear is that it is dishonourable to avoid combat out of cowardice. This goes hand in hand with their use of ambush tactics and the cloaking device. When your mission is reconnaissance, then sure, placing the mission first is more important, so remain hidden. It's not cowardly to abide by your greater mission. Also, against an opponent that clearly can provide a match, running a cloaking device is also seen as simply sound tactics. After all, shields are also a technology to avoid being struck, and not considered a coward's tool, simply a necessity. Also, if an opponent or situation shows no signs of being beatable, then throwing yourself at them is not glorious, it is a waste, and you'd be a fool to try, and the wind does not respect a fool. However, to use a cloak to avoid combat altogether, and no reasoning given, well then perhaps cowardice is the cause? That would be grounds for admonishment. Likewise, looking for underhanded tactics to shy away from combat often is seen as a fine line between tactical decisions and cowardice, such as attempting to bankrupt a rival house instead of openly confronting them. At the end of the day though, victory itself carries a measure of honour no matter how it was procured. A tenet we constantly hear is that it is dishonourable to prey upon the weak, to slay those who cannot protect themselves, yet this is something the Empire routinely does. From constant raids to warfare and simple bullying, the Klingons are constantly throwing their weight around in ways that should contradict their code. So perhaps it's better to say that there is no honour to be gained in slaying a weak opponent, but there is in slaying a weak foe. In theory, Klingons look for strength of character in others, not just physical prowess, and any opponent that stands up to them earns their respect. This can go one of two ways. Either it proves to them that you have your own spark of strength and they'll spare you, or they feel better about slaying you as you go from victim to an adversary. The treatment of prisoners is also something that Klingons have rules around. For example, they will take prisoners, and despite saying they'd rather die than be taken prisoner, they are often taken as captives. Many of their foes they would rather slay in combat than take prisoners, as this is seen as more respectful to the defeated. But pragmatism often necessitates captives, and criminals are not afforded the same level of honour, and therefore the Klingons have no qualms about imprisoning them. Penal colonies, such as Rurapente, can attest to that. Yet Klingons will not take hostages, especially those who are unable to fight back, as it is seen as a way to avoid combat by exploiting the weaker. Yet Klingons may set traps and leave baits to lure out other foes. These are not hostages per se, but often defeated foes, already bested in combat and now being used to lure in greater victories. Lying is also seen as dishonourable, with the scale of the falsehood also playing a part. An honourable warrior should speak the truth loudly and unafraid of the consequences, embracing what may come. Deception and the breaking of oaths are considered as vile acts, and on the same wavelength as cowardice. Again, however, this gets a little more flexible when it comes to combat tactics, with diversions, ambushes and so on considered pragmatic. Perhaps slightly less honourable than a fair fight, but generally not detractors of status, unless repeatedly done. A lot of Klingon tradition and ritual is also tied into honour. Most of this comes down to their origins from Kahless, who practiced many traditions to hone his craft, spirit and mind. But even these were eclipsing or adding to thousands of years of culture before him, and of course different houses prioritised different customs, weighing the importance of them separately, which adds to the confusion when it comes to identifying strict rules around honour from the outside. From this then, I would say that following tradition by itself does not lead to honour, but that they are tools to construct an honourable way of life. With how diverse the Well of Klingon rituals are, Some are even contradictory. An individual's honour is shared among the house with which they are affiliated, and this honour gives weight and influence beyond their means. For example, there are many houses which are considered small but honourable, and as such their words should still carry some merit, more so than wealth. A Klingon who is considered honourably bankrupt finds their opinions dismissed, given menial tasks, and even material possessions stripped in extreme cases. To be considered without honour is worse than being dead in most Klingon situations. Just as the honour of one is shared with a house, this honour can reflect poorly on them too. In these cases, a house is often given chances to correct the dishonour, often involving reprisals against the source. In this way, honour is almost seen as a commodity, a unit that can afford status, but one that must be maintained with new additions, new accolades, to retain its value. This has its downsides and upsides. In theory, any Klingon can attain higher positions through not just exemplary conduct in their field, but by being an honourable person. And any Klingon can challenge another over matters of dishonour, with even the chain of command having rules for ordered challenges up the ranks, and a path for usurping dishonourable captains. But honour is routinely subjective to those who are in power and have enough influence to sway the narrative. With each house, and even each Klingon, weighing differing acts of honour, it can be difficult to navigate the complexities of the great houses. For example, Kor would routinely dismiss those of common birth from serving in the Defence Force, despite their aptitude, because he placed more value on the heritage of the houses and the honour they had amassed, denying Martok service. The same Martok who went on to win many campaigns against overwhelming odds, all while serving diligently the good of the Empire and upholding his oath of service. It's not inaccurate to state that Martok was considered one of the most celebrated and honourable Klingons of his era, perhaps more so than Kor even, and if that Daha Master had had his way, it would have never happened. In effect, a combination of interpreting the lessons of Kahless and those already deemed honourable get to determine what is Klingon honour. This means that the Great Houses and High Council have the final say in such matters, but are also subject to much more scrutiny from their surrounding peers. Public sentiment and the stories that form around individuals in campaigns go a long way to spread the reputation of the honourable. Debates are often held over what acts should be taken and how honourable they are, weighing matters of honour as heavily in decision-making as morality. To a Klingon, to be honourable is to be right. But there are varying degrees and other factors to consider. Do I betray a superior officer who is cowardly, or abide by my oath to serve the Empire? Both carry honourable and dishonourable connotations, and it's down to the individual to make a choice and then be judged by the outcome. So, that covers my interpretation of Klingon honour. What I thought to be a simple topic going in turned into a more abstract analysis as it got far more complicated the deeper we look. Thanks for watching this lore video. Until the next one, I've been Rick, and goodbye.